Alright, hi guys. First off, the first thing I want to tell you guys is on Facebook, yes, on Facebook, which is where most of my audience, resides, is on Facebook. And they, most of the people that watch my videos as of right now, who watch, are on Facebook and watch my videos on YouTube. They, I pretty much do the regular blogging thing, rant style type deal, and that's what works for me to, get people to listen. And I'm okay with that. But I also, on Facebook, which is basically family, friends, and acquaintances, mainly acquaintances, because, it's back when I made my Facebook during my school days. So, I want to talk about something that, it's kind of annoying, and it's, it's not that bothersome to me personally, but I do find it rather annoying that we as a society, mainly the broader society of a Christian culture, is stuck in the ideas and the ways of dead guys that are narcissists. Let's just be honest. They're narcissists, and the way they got to power was using narcissistic tactics, and to stay in power while they were alive, to use narcissistic tactics. I have to do something real quick. Alright, so I took care of what I needed to take care of. But they stayed in power, and they got in power using narcissistic tactics. And we all know how I feel about narcissists. We all know how I feel about narcissistic tactics. Okay, so on Facebook, I was talking about my personal journey into my own form of spiritual practice, which is an eclectic witchcraft. And yeah, I'm going to call my mother out in this. And I don't know if I don't think she meant it maliciously. I think she actually, she was trying to provoke something that doesn't need to be provoked. And two, she just tried to, poke that bear, try to, maybe get a decent conversation. Which every time we have a conversation, and then I become, my YouTube self, which is just me really animated and pissed off, she wants to stop the conversation, and she can't handle it. So I don't know why, I don't really know why she did it, other than, maybe, I do believe she has a genuine fear of the devil, of Satan. And that's what I want to talk about, is the devil and Satan. And I want to talk about it from a more academic perspective, and what I think of, this this omnipresent, omnimalevolent force of evil personified. Now, there's a bunch of different, practices in witchcraft. There's working with deities and working with, pagan deities and other things like that. And there's also, a modern witchcraft, which is, incorporating icons and working with them as archetypes. And I'm not going to go into anything specifically on my practice right now in this moment. But I don't work with Satan. I work with archetypes. And I work with pagan archetypes, pagan figures archetypally. Yeah. And I don't really involved in my own practice, I don't involve Judeo-Christian values because I lived with them for 16 years. Like, I went to church for 16 years. Well, our churches were Bible based, so they weren't like Catholicism or like fire and brimstone, but they based their faith off of text and what they read in text and incorporated it into their daily lives, which I didn't have a draw to it. It really never spoke to me. It was fine. Like, I never had a problem inside the church. It was only after one summer of learning the deeper, darker church values of, just being bigots and being generally just bigoted people. Not people I know specifically, which some of them, they can change up. They can change up and, they can definitely do better. So, because if they're going to go by the Bible and then they're going to quote the New Testament and then, say they're living by the New Testament, but then they, live how they practice in their daily lives or live in their daily lives, it just seems more like they're being more like the Old Testament rather than the New Testament. And they're not really taking in the parables of Jesus into account. And maybe they are, but I don't know. Alright, so I gotta get back on track. So Satan. Satan as a figure to me, he doesn't appeal to me. Every archetype that we see of Satan in a Christian viewpoint, I'm talking about Christian, not Satan and Satanism and all of that, but basing off just Christian views of this figure of Satan, he doesn't appeal to me. The Christian art or the Christian interpretations of him is basically just an amalgamation of different pagan deities, which can be attributed to the religious leadership at the time, scapegoating pagans and their deities, and then forming, okay, well, look, this looks like their gods, so now and attributing evil and malintended influences, and then saying, hey, you know what, if you're a pagan, you're evil, which that's just scapegoating 101. They're just gonna use a bunch of offhanded and dumb shit and start, they'll say something narcissists will say something offhanded or, put all their bullshit onto a group of people, one person, like Hitler scapegoated the Jewish people and all the other people he wanted to exterminate. And he told his followers, hey, you know what, don't be like these people because you want to be more like, these upstanding citizens. It's the golden child versus the scapegoat, where they're putting all of their bullshit onto one group of people and then lifting up and then idealizing another group or another person. And that's kind of how I see how the church has done that. I can identify how the church has done that with pagan deities and other spiritual practices, other religious groups, where they, pick out, they might make up bullshit, or they'll pick out, one extreme example, or one offhanded example of violence committed by a person or a group who claims to have those values or claim they hold the titles like pagan or Muslim or anything like that. And I don't think, like, and I think they did that with Satan too, where they, they scapegoated this, they made a figure, Satan, because, in medieval times, the Jewish scholars and philosophers, the traditionalists and the philosophers in the medieval times, they adhered to like a rational belief system, and they didn't really mess around. They didn't think of the personified Satan as a actual being. They just considered it to be an evil as an abstract concept, like evil acts, rather than, one personified form of evil. And I think the Christian people, took pagan ideas of using deities and using to describe natural phenomenons that happen in the world, and they personified it. Which is, now that I'm saying it, it actually does make even more sense. How Christians steal things and then they make things. And it's not just Christians. When I'm talking about Christians, I'm talking about the leadership that started it all. I'm talking about the dead guys, where the dead narcissists that wanted to be in power. And how do you stay in power? Well, you can be respected by your people, or you can be feared by your people, or you can do a little bit of both, which narcissists will do. They'll be respectable in some regards, but most of the time they're just gonna be assholes and fuck people over and use coercive control, use the threat of an evil god coming to terrorize people or coming to take them if they commit evil acts against the church or evil against the leadership. So if you thought differently from the church, like if you thought of pagan deities and you worship them as polytheist, or in a modern day let's talk about the polytheists still exist, but polytheism, and that you hold the belief of multiple gods and worship many gods or worship one main god, and it wasn't the biblical Christian god Yahweh, which, let's be honest, they probably made that one up too, for like the all-encompassing it, like the narcissist figure, the golden child rather than the scapegoat. So they kind of just they do shit like that, or they did shit like that. But now in our modern day culture, where witchcraft and other spiritualities are, now beginning to, not beginning, like they beginning, but they've gained more traction. They gain more traction with like a new movement and a new life to them. And it just seems like people who adhere to the Bible's way of teaching things, and it keeps perpetuating this golden child versus scapegoat. Scapegoat, golden child. I didn't center my chair very easily. Here, is that better? No, it's fucking worse. No, see? Alright, we're just gonna have to do this, alright? Now I made it worse, alright? But it perpetuates that, like, okay, Satan's really real. That's fine if you believe it. If you want to personify... I personally don't believe in a polytheistic, deities. I'm more of an agnostic where it comes to deities are concerned. Like, the deities on my altar space. The Morgan, the Celtic war goddess and goddess of sovereignty. The Morgan and Sekhmet from the Egyptian pantheon. I don't see them as like real figures. Now there are polytheists and other pagan witches who do think they're very real beings who exist on another realm or in this physical reality. I don't know. I don't claim to know or claim belief or disbelief that they really exist. So that is why I work with them archetypally rather than worship them and, believe that they actually exist. But Judeo-Christian Judeo-Christian gods and figures, I'm leaning more towards okay, they made it up. The leadership at the time, the people that wanted to be in power, men who wanted to be in power, created a figure created two figures, the golden child and then the scapegoat, just to keep people in that perpetual state of fear, so then they can get leverage over people. And all this is to say, I don't work with Satan. I don't work with the devil. I don't work with any really Judeo-Christian values. Yes, I hold my own. I'm an eclectic witch, so that means I'm forming my own spirituality through practice of a collection of different sources. Like, I don't have a specific path, like maybe druidism, I don't know, being a druid or being like a pagan. Like, I don't really call myself a pagan, even though I work with pagan archetypes or pagan figures as archetypes. I don't consider myself any. The only title I want to ascribe to is being eclectic, being an eclectic witch. So someone who does the practice of witchcraft, which could be anything that I, bring into my, like working with herbs and their correspondences, or the Berlin correspondences, working with the elements, working with sigils and other things like that, and maybe using divination tools and all that. Like, all this to say is, like, you don't have to be scared, Mom. I'm not working with the devil. I've lived with the devil. He doesn't, obviously I don't work with him. We actively hate each other. So, like, it's not gonna work out. I went to Lilith, and, we tried working with her. She called me stupid the first time. Well, she blew me off and thought I was stupid. And then she, fucked over, mainly you and me. But, like, I more care about you than me. Which, that's probably where I get that. I get that from you. I definitely don't get that from him. Let's be honest. There's not much. The only thing I get from him is probably my harsh words, my poisonous tongue I get from him. I want to say my cruelty, but my level of cruelty is not on his level because it's been diluted by you and your traits. So I'm not on the level of his cruelty. Like, I probably could be that cruel if I really wanted to. If I pushed myself, I could be that cruel. I don't know. I mean, that's literally all I wanted to say. I didn't adhere to any of my notes, which I would recommend on just like a quick Google search and going to Wikipedia and reading that Wikipedia on Satan and the devil. I would definitely recommend that to learn more about Satan and his how he came to be. Satan and the devil, like, well, you don't have to really look at the devil, but like definitely look at the Satan and the devil and then see how they how they came about. But and see like the views of the time, because I think Wikipedia or whoever wrote the Wikipedia article on Satan, I think they did a very good job on hitting the most valuable points. So I would definitely recommend that. Maybe I'll put it in the description. I'll try to remember to put it in the description. So, but that's all I wanted to say. And with that, I will see you all guys next time. I'm trying to get something to do. I'm trying to do something a little bit new, but we'll see how that goes.